10 years ago, I inherited a piece of land nobody wanted. A crumbling cabin by a quiet lake, overgrown with weeds, forgotten by time. Back then, people laughed at me for keeping it. But today, that same land is worth over $10 million. And instead of congratulations, I've been getting cops at my door every week. The homeowners association next door doesn't just hate me, they want me gone. They're pulling every dirty trick in the book, and I've had to fight back with everything I have. Here's how my inheritance turned into a full-scale war. The story begins the day my grandfather passed away. He left me 15 acres of lakefront land. Wild, untouched, and to most people, completely worthless. The cabin on it looked like something out of a horror movie. Sagging roof, broken dock, windows clouded with years of dust. But when I stepped onto that land for the first time, something inside me shifted. I was only 27, drowning in student loans, and barely starting out as an architect. Yet that night, sitting on the creaky dock, listening to the water lap against the shore, I felt like I'd found home. Before he died, my grandfather told me something strange. When you own land by the water, Marcus, you've got rights the government can't take away. At the time, I brushed it off as one of his rambling old sayings. I didn't know it then, but those words would come back years later, like a prophecy. For now, I had no idea of the storm waiting over the horizon. All I knew was this: the land wasn't worthless. It was a gift, and I was determined to breathe life back into it. For the next 10 years, that land became my sanctuary. Every weekend, every holiday, I poured sweat into restoring it. I fixed the roof beam by beam. I rebuilt the dock plank by plank. I added solar panels, planted a vegetable garden, and even built a chicken coop. The cabin, once forgotten, slowly transformed into a place people said belonged in a magazine on sustainable living. It wasn't just property, it was freedom. Out there, I wasn't Marcus the struggling architect. I was Marcus the builder, the caretaker, the dreamer. When city life drained me, I'd escape to the cabin. Sitting under the stars, fresh eggs frying on a cast-iron skillet, I felt untouchable. And for a whole decade, no one bothered me. Not once. But peace is fragile. And peace near money doesn't last long. Because one day, the quiet shores of Lake Morrison weren't quiet anymore. $1 million mansions began sprouting up like weeds around the lake. Lawns so perfectly cut they looked like golf courses. Gleaming BMWs in every driveway. And suddenly, my natural land, chickens, gardens, and all, wasn't part of their picture-perfect neighborhood. That's when my nightmare began. The first time I met her, she arrived in a silver BMW, heels clicking against my gravel drive. Nain Coldwell, president of the Lakeside Meadows HOA. "Mr. Reed," she said, flashing a smile so sharp it felt like a threat. "Your property doesn't really fit the vision of our community." I invited her in, because I was raised with manners. She didn't take the coffee I offered. Instead, she slid a folder across my table. Inside, an offer to buy my land for $2.5 million. Now, that sounds like a lot. But I knew lakefront half my size was going for at least $4 million. She wasn't offering me a deal. She was offering me a bribe to walk away. I smiled politely and declined. That's when her smile changed. Her mask slipped just enough for me to see the shark beneath. "This offer has an expiration date," she warned, scribbling it down on her business card. I didn't think much of it then. But a week later, I came home to find an official-looking letter wedged into my doorframe. Code enforcement. Inspections. Threats of fines. That's when I realized she wasn't playing around. It started small. Anonymous complaints about my chickens. Then citations for my dock being unsafe. Each came with a fine. Each fine bigger than the last. Then came the patrol cars. Officers knocking at my gate. Routine safety inspections. Week after week. I knew what this was. Pressure. Intimidation. They wanted me to fold. But instead of folding, I started recording everything. Every cop, every clipboard, every so-called violation. I built what I called my defense file. The harassment escalated. Security guards hired by the HOA began patrolling near my property. At first they stayed outside. Then my cameras caught them trespassing at 2 a.m. with surveying equipment. They even staged photos, like unlatching my chicken coop and snapping pictures of unsanitary conditions. That's when the truth hit me like a brick. This wasn't just about property values. This was a coordinated campaign. And if they thought I was going to be intimidated, they picked the wrong landowner. Because for every picture they staged, I had video proof of the setup. For every false claim, I had documentation. The game had changed, and I was ready to play. The breakthrough came from my neighbor, Jake Morrison. Old engineer, lived down the road. He walked over one morning with a folder thick with papers. "Son," he said, "you're in deeper than you think. But you've got more power than they want you to know." Inside his folder were property maps, old county records, and emails. Emails linking the HOA president to Golden Shore Development, a powerful company buying up land around the lake. But that wasn't the real bombshell. Buried in my grandfather's 1952 deed was a clause I'd never noticed before: riparian water rights. Not only did I own the land, I controlled part of the lake. Even more shocking, the main water supply line for the entire HOA community ran directly through my easement. If I wanted, I could shut off their water supply. Legally. That's why they needed me gone. My property wasn't an eyesore. It was the key piece of a multimillion-dollar casino resort they were planning. Now it all made sense: the bribe, the threats, the harassment. But they didn't know one thing: I wasn't about to back down. Not when my grandfather's land was at stake. The HOA called a big meeting. Community center. Dozens of residents. Nain stood at the front with a slideshow designed to paint me as a menace. Photos of my chickens. My garden. My truck. She called me a danger to property values. Then she made her mistake. She looked out at the crowd and promised, "This eyesore will be gone by year's end. One man's selfishness won't stop our community's progress." That's when I stood up. Quietly. Calmly. Briefcase in hand. I walked to the front and laid out the truth. My deed, my water rights, my surveillance footage, and, the final nail, a leaked contract showing Nain stood to personally earn $12 million if I sold my land under pressure. The room erupted. Neighbors shouted, demanding answers. Board members scrambled, claiming ignorance. Nain's mask shattered. In front of 60 witnesses, she screamed, "We have every right to pursue development. No one man will stop us." That outburst was gold. Proof. Recorded on my phone. The community was in chaos. But instead of backing down, Nain doubled down. And her next move would take things from harassment to attempted destruction. Late one night, their security guards staged a fake assault at my gate. They tried to provoke me, then pretended I attacked them. They even called 911. What they didn't know: I had high-definition cameras covering every inch of my property. The footage showed everything: them trespassing, planning the fake fight, and throwing themselves to the ground. I walked straight into the sheriff's office with 200 pages of evidence. Recordings, contracts, surveillance, timelines. Even a bribery attempt Nain made to silence Jake. Sheriff Rodriguez took one look and called the FBI. This wasn't harassment anymore. It was organized crime. Within weeks, federal agents raided Golden Shore Development, the HOA offices, and Nain's own home. She was arrested for fraud, bribery, racketeering, even tampering with public utilities. The HOA was dissolved. Golden Shore was fined millions. And me? I kept my land. My sanctuary. My grandfather's legacy. Standing on my dock today, I think about the lesson I learned. Bullies count on fear. They count on silence. But one person with the truth, and the will to fight, can bring them crashing down. So if you ever face a battle like mine, remember this: don't fold. Document everything. And never back down.